Welcome to Research Hub. This video guide a list of 25 possible inquiries that could arise during a research project defense. It also guide tips on how to respond to these questions effectively. The inquiries encompass various areas such as summarizing the study, reasons for undertaking the research, contributions to knowledge, discoveries, methodology, limitations, suggestions, and concluding statements. Question number 1. How will this research add to the body of knowledge? When the need for explanation arises, you will be required to explain how your study, if allowed, will add to the body of available evidence. Here, you'll get to defend it using your research methodologies. A case study, or any special models or conceptual frameworks that were used in the study. Question number 2. What is the study's significance? You will get to discuss the significance of your study in the same way that you will discuss how it will add to the body of knowledge. In your response, you should emphasize how your study will benefit organizations and society as a whole. Question number 3. Did you fill in any gaps in your research? You must be prepared to persuade the committee members that your method is unique and that it addressed areas where other researchers haven't done a lot of work. Question 4. What are your findings? And now it's expected of you to present your results or findings from the study in a clear and concise manner. Always link your findings to your research objectives/questions. This will make your panel members simply be carried along. Question 5. What methods or sampling techniques did you employ? To answer this question, you want to be conversant in your research methodology. Your Chapter 3, in most projects, must be at your fingertips. Your ability to justify your sample size and technique is going to be highly rewarded here. Question 6. Why choose this method? You ought to not only state a specific method for the study. You must even be ready to justify why you chose the tactic in a convincing manner. And now you're liberal to quote sources or similar studies where such methods were adopted. Question 7. Supporting your findings, what are your recommendations? Recommendations are very vital in every research study and will not be joked with. In essence, you ought to know your recommendations offhand. Question 8. Supporting your findings, what areas will you suggest for future research? Questions like this are just there to check your reasoning and authority in your research area. You ought to be ready to suggest future research areas in line with your study. Question 9. What's your measurement instrument? In simple terms, what data collection method did you use for the study? Here you state if questionnaires were distributed or data was gotten from secondary sources. For more information on measurement instruments. Question 10. What are your research variables? Here you'll get to convince your panel members that you simply know what you're talking about. You would like to elucidate your independent and dependent variables to convince them that you simply are on point. Your variables are present in your project topic. You would like to spot these variables and know their definitions also to ace your defense. Question 11. What source of knowledge was employed for the study? And now you've got to state the sources you bought data from. Generally, you've got to state whether data was gotten from a primary or secondary source or both. You'll further convince the committee members by discussing the literature review for the study, both theoretical and empirical. Question 12. What theories or theoretical framework is your study based on? This is a really technical question but interesting. Before you step into the defense room, you ought to know a minimum of 2 relevant theories that relate to your study. For instance, the impact of motivation on employee productivity is going to be supported by Maslow's theory and other theories of motivation. If you can't find relevant theories to copy your study, consult your supervisor for help. Question 13. How would you relate your findings to existing theories on the study? To ace this question, one will need to read extensively. You ought to know existing theories on the topic matter also as empirical studies too. Your ability to link your findings to previous research studies, whether they agree or not, will go an extended way in validating your study. You'll score good points here, trust me. Question 14. Did you fill in any gaps in your research? Every research project needs to have a challenge. You receive all of the points allotted for answering this question because of your abilities to solve this puzzle and research topics that have not yet been studied. You must be prepared to persuade the committee members that your method is unique and that it addressed areas where other researchers haven't done a lot of work. Question 15. What restrictions did you face? Another easy but challenging question is this one. Most of the time, the question is asked to criticize your work rather than to feel sorry for you. You should use caution when responding to this question to avoid implicating yourself. Be careful not to sell yourself short. Discussing your approach or data analysis constraints could imply that your paper is prejudiced or poorly researched, therefore avoid doing so. Instead of limiting your studies, use minor constraints like the challenges associated with juggling projects and lectures. Question 16. What conclusions have you reached? You now need to clearly and succinctly present your study's outcomes or findings. Always relate your conclusions to the goals and/or questions of your research. Your panel members will become passive as a result. What techniques or methods did you use for sampling? You need to be familiar with your research approach to responding to this question. You must have access to your Chapter 3 in most projects. Your ability to defend your sample size and methodology will be greatly rewarded in this situation. Question 17. What practical applications may your research work lead to? The majority of management and social science projects are more abstract, making them a little more challenging for management and social science students than science and engineering students. But you should make an effort to be reasonable in this situation. Relate your research to contemporary trends in your home, workplace, industry, polity, institutions of higher learning, etc. You'll get points for using pertinent examples and illustrations in this situation. Question 18. What variables are you using in your research? Here, you get to persuade the members of your panel that you merely are knowledgeable in the subject at hand. To convince them that you are correct, you should explain your independent and dependent variables. Your project topic contains your variables. To excel at your defense, you should be able to recognize these variables and know what they mean. Question 19. What suggestions do you have for upcoming research? Your capacity for problem solving is tested here. You should be able to spot topics that require more investigation. Question 20. Why is your study important? The response to this research question should describe how your findings have affected your field of study. You could discuss the novel understandings your study has provided and how it has affected society. Question 21. What are the research's dependent and independent variables? Several varying factors have an impact on your research project. These variables can be described. Independent variables in your study have values that are unaffected by other variables. The dependent variables, on the other hand, have values that alter as the independent variable does. Our study, Impact of Online Tutoring on Test Results, uses the participants' test scores as the dependent variable and the online aspect of the classes as the independent variable. Question 22. Is there anything further you would like to add? It's time to give thanks. Take this opportunity to express your gratitude to the committee for their time and inquiries. Tell them how much you learned from them and how you intend to fix any mistakes found in your work. Our internal and external supervisors will be greatly impressed by this. Question 23. What are your research questions? If you are completely prepared, you should be able to respond to this question in 0.015 seconds. Continue reading to see a sample complaint letter for the omission of exam marks. Question 24. How will this research add to the body of knowledge? When the need for explanation arises, you will be required to explain how your study, if allowed, will add to the body of available evidence. Here, you'll get to defend it using your research methodologies, a case study, or any special models or conceptual frameworks that were used in the study. Question 25. What type of knowledge source was used for the study? You must now identify the source or sources from which you obtained the data. Generally speaking, you must specify if the data came from primary, secondary, or both sources. By going over the study's theoretical and empirical literature review, you can persuade the committee members even more. We hope the best for you. Don't forget like, share and subscribe my channel.